Here's an Instagram live of me interviewing Dr. Jon Hernandez, the physical therapist from the NFL Los Angeles Rams. This was one of my favorite talks yet, considering the fact that when I was an aspiring PT, I wanted to work with professional athletes. We covered a ton of topics, including his journey to where he is today, what does his job entail and what's it like treating professional athletes, typical medical team interactions, and some of the biggest challenges that come with the job. All of this along with answering some great live questions that rolled in. Hope you enjoy this one.
The Prehab audio experience will teach you how to take control of your health through knowledge by optimizing performance, promoting longevity, and keeping your movement system in tune. Welcome to your host, the Prehab Guys.
All right, everybody. Welcome, Jon Hernandez, the physical therapist for the LA Rams.
How you guys doing?
Just me in here, but they're all waving. They're all saying hi. All right, so we're super fortunate to have Jon on. I've been really excited for this one all week. Even it's been a little bit more than a week since we organized this. But like I said, Jon is the physical therapist for the Los Angeles Rams. And Jon, let's just start with, how did you get here? Tell us just a little bit of background about you and where you are today.
Cool. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I started kind of my path to get here when I went to University of Delaware for athletic training school. I always knew I wanted to do physical therapy, and I thought pursuing athletic training would kind of be a means to do it in a more practical manner, because usually with that curriculum, you have a lot of hands-on experience, working with athletes and being in the training room and stuff like that. So I decided to take that path. When I was there, I'd heard about NFL internships through the school, and a good amount of students from that program went on to do internships in the NFL, summer internships. So that was always something that interested me. So one of the upperclassmen, he worked for the Buffalo Bills for the summer. He actually invited me to come work a game for the Eagles, or against the Eagles. It was Bills Eagles game. So I drove up to Philly to work the game. I met with the Bills staff, and I kind of expressed my interest into possibly doing an internship. So they asked me to send my resume in. I did, but unfortunately it was too late. They told me that they had filled all the positions, so they didn't have kind of a position for me, but they knew someone with the Panthers that was looking for a summer intern. So I got connected with the Panthers. So that was my first NFL kind of experience, is being a summer intern for the Carolina Panthers in 2008. So that kind of sparked my interest in football and, working in the NFL. So when I was graduating Delaware, I kind of had two options. It was either pursue the NFL or go to PT school. Because the athletic trainer for the Bills asked if I want to do a seasonal internship. When I was offered that, I said, maybe I'll delay my acceptance to USC. I got into USC for PT school, and I was kind of based on the decision, but he pushed me. He told me, no, go to PT school. We'll just stay in contact, and you never know what will happen in the future. So throughout PT school, I stayed in contact with him, and at the end of PT school, there was another opportunity to do a summer or a year-long internship. And, that actually fell through because I did a sports residency at USC. And then when I did the sports residency, a position opened up with the Bills. I kept in contact with the athletic trainer there. And, I interviewed. And at the time, it was the NFL, but I was pretty invested in Southern California. I had these plans, go to Hermosa Beach and live by the beach and work in a clinic. But when I interviewed with the Buffalo Bills, they had a great staff. They had great organizational kind of hierarchy there. And, it was pretty welcoming. Although it was in Buffalo, you can't let an opportunity like that slip away. And, it was a great opportunity, great experience, kind of got my foot in the door in the NFL. But, when I was there, I figured, it'd be awesome to be able to do this in Southern California, going to USC and kind of having starting to grow some roots here when I was here. So then when I found out the Rams were moving to LA, I reached out, and crazy enough, the head athletic trainer for the Rams was actually my boss in Carolina with the Panthers in 2008. So, kind of building that initial connection, my first opportunity in the NFL was with Carolina, with Reggie Scott, who's the head athletic trainer for us and for the Rams. I interviewed with him, and even having that subtle connection and that small connection, working with him for that summer and having a little bit of experience with the Buffalo Bills, I think helped me with the position. And I was fortunate enough and blessed to get offered the position with the Rams when they moved out to LA, and then kind of the rest is history. And here we are now.
Lots of good things from that. So a couple things. We all laughed when we talked about the Eagles because I'm a huge Philadelphia Eagles fan.
Yeah.
Jon and I, we've talked about this in the past. We were just talking about this earlier. What's also interesting is you're from New Jersey. I didn't know. I'm also from New Jersey.
There you go.
And I also visited at University of Delaware. And if I didn't hear back from Penn State, I would have went to University of Delaware for my undergrad.
Really? Yeah.
So you're a little bit older than me, I think, but close paths. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then you talked about the networking, which a lot of questions really rolled in the past couple of weeks, and we're going to get into that later. What I want to follow up all that with, and I think it's a really hard question to ask because if you were to ask me, I don't know what I would say, but have you met your end goal? Is this your dream job?
I would say no, but I'm very, very happy and fortunate to where I'm at right now. I think we have a really great staff and great organization to be a part of. It just makes work that much more fun to come to. Have an opportunity to work with a great performance staff, strength and conditioning staff, coaching staff. It really is cool, and I'm really happy where I'm at right now. For the future holds, I don't know, it's kind of hard to say right now, but I just know that right now I'm really trying to focus on becoming a better clinician. And just trying to get better and really honing the skills to be able to help these guys go out back on the field, maximize their potential and be able to kind of do what, got them there and make sure they stay that way and, try and maximize performance too. I think one of the cool things I have the opportunity to do here is be able to collaborate with the strength and conditioning staff. They're awesome, and I know I learn from them every day. So being able to kind of learn some of those things, I think ultimately helps, with some of the rehabs that I do. And, conversely, they're very eager to learn, and, I try and swap ideas and swap knowledge with them as much as possible, because at the end of the day, we're both here for the players. We're both here to maximize their performance. So being able to have one voice and one message between our rooms and being able to, convey the same message and speak the same language is really strong. And I think the players have a lot of good buy-in when we're able to kind of have that one voice and one message. So I would say right now, I'm really happy where I'm at. So I just try to be, the best clinician I can right now. And then whatever happens later on, happens later on.
I love it. And some questions rolled in, like, are you the only PT on staff? We're going to get into that because I know a lot of other questions all related to how it works. How's the staff? How's the communication? Lots of very interesting questions. But you talked about working with pros, and you talked about how that's the number one goal. So a great question that rolled in was, how long did it take after PT school until you felt confident enough to work with the pros?
It's funny because, after PT school, I felt like, I still had a lot to learn. I feel like a lot of PT students feel that way when they're done with physical therapy school. I think one big thing that really helped me was my sports residency at USC. I had the opportunity to work in an athletic training room and be able to work with a variety of athletes in a variety of sports. And that also gave the opportunity to be able to kind of use my athletic training knowledge and skills and combine that with my newly acquired PT skills and kind of combine them both and I guess mesh them so I could be more of a sports medicine clinician and being able to take an athlete, from that acute initial injury all the way through the rehab to, when they're back, playing on the field. So that was a very unique opportunity that at least kind of helped spur that on. But when I got to Buffalo, there was still a learning curve, and it was kind of one of those things where you learn on the fly, and as long as you have a strong foundational background on just what and sticking to the basics and not trying to do too much, really just being an expert in what I think that resonates with the players a lot. And I think I know one of the questions was, kind of building buy-in and having the players, kind of listen to me, I guess. I think if you're just really good at what you do and be able to explain the why and everything that you do, you kind of start to build rapport with the players. And I think that's really important. So I would say, like, again, I'm still learning. Every position on the field has a different demand on the body. It's a different movement. So I would say just hours of watching practice, hours of watching different movements that players go through, and just learning from the coaches too. I will ask coaches, what are some drills you go through? What are some things that you're looking for? What kind of movements do they want to be more proficient in and efficient in? And I think that kind of helps, knowing that you're speaking the same language as a player, taking, a DB through some EDD drills, and, knowing what the back pedal and W drill, how many steps and how many yards and stuff like that. I think that really resonates with the player. So as the more you know and the common language that you speak, I think definitely helps being, I guess, more comfortable working with football players.
And then at Buffalo, were you the only PT on staff?
No. So there was a PT who was there before me, Chris Bichetti. He's still there. So again, being able to work with PTs who have been there for years, being able to learn from them and pick their brain about certain things, and what their return to play progressions are and what their criteria is. That was equally as important, because nothing beats experience, and being able to learn from guys who've been there through and through, and kind of know positional demands as well. And you're just learning the sport. I think that's one really important thing just with athletics and sports, is learning the movements of your sport, whatever it may be, lacrosse, football, baseball, basketball, anything like that, is kind of entrench yourself in that sport and speak that common language.
I think I actually met Chris. We were talking about you once upon a time.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. No, Chris is awesome.
And for the LA Rams, are you the only PT?
So no, there's also another staff member, Byron Cunningham. He's actually the director of rehab and PTATC as well. So again, amazing opportunity to be able to learn from him. He's been in the game for a very long time. So even more so learning some of those return to play progressions that they go through, and on-field progressions that I didn't really have a lot of exposure to. They were able to take me under their wing and teach me. So that in and of itself is, was invaluable to me, and kind of just learning more about football.
And I think that's the nature of our career, is that you're never done learning. You're always trying to push the needle. And there needs to be this sort of level of like feeling uncomfortable. Because if you ever get comfortable, then you can maybe get stagnant. I feel like you should never be comfortable with your job. Because if you're comfortable, then you're not trying to push it. So going into that, how is it treating pro athletes? Is it different than the average patient? What are some of the more common injuries you treat? What is your biggest challenge treating professional football athletes? I just threw like 5 questions at you. Take your time.
No. Yeah, I'll try my best to kind of hit all of them. As a physical therapist, athletic trainer, I think the most important thing is just to realize at the end of the day, these guys are, breathe the same way we breathe. They have lives. They're, human as well. So you kind of treat them, the same. You don't give them, kind of special treatment, because at the end of the day, certain injuries are the same. It's more so their goals are different. So, someone walks into your clinic or into the athletic training room and they have a certain injury. The principles and the overarching goals are the same in terms of function, but based off their position, based off what they need to do on the field or on the playing court, I think that's what's going to drive your return to play. I think that's something, again, that you have to engulf yourself in, is, knowing the sport, knowing the language, knowing the movements. So at the end of the day, there's a lot of similarities with treating, I would say, the average person you see in the clinic and versus training an athlete. But at the end of the day, it's very goal driven. What do you need to do to get them back to what they want to do? And I think that stems from just the principles of PT school, and always being goal driven, and also being function driven as well. So those are the things I kind of stick to a little bit. Obviously, these are big guys. Maybe adjusting, making sure you have really good body mechanics and leverage whenever you're doing stuff. But other than that, treating them just like a normal person, and not treating them with any special treatment, I think also resonates with them, because some of those guys are used to getting this special treatment. And I used to kind of people, telling them how it is. And I think the realer you are with them, they actually give you a little bit more respect in that regard. So I think that's, very important in regards to that. Sorry, what was the other question?
That's a good question. I would say, what would you say are some of the more common injuries that you treat? And then what's the biggest challenge?
Common, it's funny. It kind of goes in waves.
Just like a normal clinic.
Just like a normal clinic. One year you could have a bunch of high ankle sprains. 1 year you get a lot of turf toe. 1 year you get a lot of shoulder injuries and chronic labral pathologies that linger throughout the season that you need to manage conservatively throughout the season. So it really just depends. This year we had a good amount of ankle conditions that we were managing throughout the season. So again, I think it's more so just being ready for anything. And that's the beauty of sports is anything can walk through the door, anything can happen on the field when you're on out there. So just make sure you're best prepared for all that stuff. And I'm just very fortunate to have a great staff around me. So you're never alone in the rehab. So it could be a very unique situation. And again, Byron or Tyler or Mark or Reggie can have experience working with that very rare case or diagnosis. And obviously that helps me, and I'll be able to shed some light on certain things as well. So it really just depends, on the wave of that year. But I think the importance of being able to be ready for anything is real important.
Great question, Roland. Let's answer it. So Jay Crispy 24, how do you deal with the pressure from the athlete and the team/coach to return the athlete to play when the athlete has a lot of money at stake and the team is looking to make a playoff run? What a question.
Yeah, it's a loaded question. I gotta be careful what I say. No, but at the end of the day,
you answer it. So before you say anything, you answer how you want. Don't feel pressured.
Yeah. At the end of the day, their health and their well-being is our most important priority. Regardless of anything else externally that's going on. At the end of the day, it's all about player safety. It's all about, them being able to protect themselves. So if they go through the progression and they prove to us that they can protect themselves, they can go through a practice, they can do certain things functionally, that helps build the case. But, if that's not the case, I think we have a very understanding and great coaching staff where, they understand, those things. And, they also don't want to put other players at risk. I think one important thing to consider is that if one player is injured, that puts other players at risk. They're dealing with certain things that may inhibit their ability or function. Say if you're O lineman and you get 50 or 60% of an O lineman, and his task is to be able to protect our quarterback. I'm not sure if you even want that. And I think that's something that our coaching staff is really good about. And it's next man up. It's being able to trust the other players on your roster to fill in when that's needed. Again, that's not our job, but I feel like it makes our job a little bit easier when they're a little bit more understanding of that. So again, at the forefront of what we do and our job is to make sure players are safe and they can protect themselves. And then, if they can't go, they can't go. We're not going to force them out there if they're not confident. And, we're not confident as well. So we definitely don't push the envelope in that regard. But, we got some tough nuts on our roster. So, some guys will be able to kind of, lock in when needed. But, that's also our job to be able to pull in the reins if we don't feel that way as well. So it definitely is a team effort and a team decision when it comes down to determining if a player is going to come back in, regardless of the external kind of noise or external situations. We try not to do that. Yeah. When that's going on TV, we make sure to mute it or turn it off. But that definitely doesn't fog our decision making. Our one priority is player health, and we stick to that.
And it just goes back to how's treating professional athletes different than your average patient? Safety. I mean, that's safety is always at the top with a lot of those things. So great answer. I've seen this question roll in twice by the same person. I do want to get into the medical staff stuff. I know that there's a lot of interest there, but let's see what you have to say for this person. So I'm currently an undergrad and plans to either do PT or AT. This question is from Palem Alex. Sorry if I messed anything up. I work for the Astros organization and in the works to be an intern for their AA team. What tips do you have for a woman in the field? This is interesting because we were talking about this before we got on call.
We
So,
were. You know what? I think that my main thing is don't get fixated about, being a female in the profession or in that organization. I feel like, you just go in and do your job. So regardless if you're male or female, I feel like your job speaks for you. So regardless of that situation, being very confident in your skills and being able to maximize and learn from the opportunity, I think is important regardless if you're a male or female. I don't think there should be any special treatment because that means there's inequality, and I think that if equality is the goal, just with everything in sports and anything like that, the standards are the same. So I feel like you'd be very proficient at your job. So also do what got you there. I don't think you got there because you're a female. You got there because you're a skilled clinician. So as long as you keep that up, I think that will definitely help you in your career path.
I love it. So now let's talk about this. You mentioned a couple things about the staff, the line of communication, how that's streamlining optimal performance for the athletes. Let's talk about the staff. So how do you maintain communication with the entire medical team? If you want to elaborate, who exactly is the medical team? Where do you see your seats? And then maybe even you can touch on previous experiences, how you would compare maybe the Rams to the Bills, if you want to talk about that, or maybe some of those internships in the past, or what you know about the medical team and that communication board across the spectrum of the NFL.
Cool. So Reggie Scott, he's our head athletic trainer and also co-director of performance. So he kind of oversees our room as well as with strength and conditioning. There's also a co-director of performance, Ted Rath. He's the head strength and conditioning coach. So they kind of tag team the performance staff, and that's us, strength and conditioning, dietetics, and player engagement. And then with our staff directly with the medical staff. We have myself, PT/ATC, Byron Cunningham, Director of Rehab, PT/ATC, Tyler Williams, Coordinator of Sports Science, Athletic Trainer, Mark Cadasco, Athletic Trainer, and that's kind of our main team. We have 2 seasonal interns that we have throughout the season to kind of help out with day-to-day things as well. There's also 3 other assistant strength and conditioning coaches. So, our staff, a lot of other teams, I think the trend is to get more clinicians in the athletic training room. I know some teams that were treating all the guys with 2 or 3 people and some interns. I think now the trend is to be able to improve the ratio of player to clinician and being able to make sure that, they have the resources to, have some hands-on care or something like that, and, things of that manner. So I think that's definitely what the push is going to be, is to have more clinicians on staff to be able to provide that care. So, I think that's across the board. That's the trend we're seeing, is that there are more clinicians, on the staffs, just to be able to provide, more efficient care. Every team is different. Every team works differently. I can kind of only speak on what I've been able to work for. I know Buffalo is pretty similar. They've kind of changed a little bit in regards to numbers, but when I was there, it was 4 of us, or it was 4 of us. So again, 4 of us with about 3 interns and 2 or 3 interns. So it's also just a matter of efficiency. Regardless of who you have on your staff, staffs are able to do this for years with 3 people. So being able to just be efficient with your tasks and your duties. It isn't so much you need all these numbers to do your job. I think if you're just really efficient with your job, you can find the most optimal ways to get the player care that they need, but also cover practice and be able to do the day-to-day stuff in the training room as well. So I think that's really kind of the thing that sets us apart, some of that efficiency.
And you mentioned interns, strength and conditioning interns, as well as AT interns, athletic trainers.
Strength and conditioning interns, I believe, they usually have one, but I'm not exactly sure. I know for us, we definitely have two.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then athletic trainer interns as well.
I'm sorry, just athletic training interns.
Okay.
Not PT,
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, just athletic
Yeah.
training.
So I was going to dive into that because a lot of the questions were like, do you take DPT interns? Are there NFL clinical rotations for PT students?
Right. Not yet. That's something that's always been an interest for me. And I think that's something that hopefully, we be able to do down the road. But right now, no, I think it's more so because, we've been in the city for 3 years. It feels like we've been here for a long time. I think it's also giving us time to get our settle in a little bit and, what we do. And once we get pretty comfortable with where we're at, I think expanding that might be in the works. But, that's something that kind of goes year by year. So can't speak on anything, but definitely something we'd like to do.
And then, John, I don't think we've mentioned this yet, but you are a physical therapist. Do you also hold your athletic training license as well?
I do. Yeah.
Okay.
So I was able to do that when I was at Delaware, when I was an undergrad. But now I know now the licensure has changed to be a master's. So for athletic training, you have to do a master's to be able to sit for the test and to become certified. So it just makes it a tad tougher to be able to be dual credentialed now, because you'd have to, from what I believe, you have to go through undergrad and then you have to do your master's to get your athletic training degree and certification, as well as PT school. I know there are a lot of schools out there that are trying to combine those two fields and kind of have a kind of straight line through 7 years and be able to get both. I don't exactly know which programs those are, but I know those exist. So that's definitely something to look into for got people who are just interested in, in pursuing that now.
And do you feel like you have to be dual credentialed in order to work in the NFL or no? Do you know any PTs in NFL that are not ATCs?
I do. And I think it's more so them being exposed to and having experience with athletes and, again, being proficient at what they do, and, their skills and their body of work speaks for themselves. So I don't think it's necessarily a matter of you have to be dual credentialed to be working in the NFL. I think their body of work speaks for itself. And I think that's what ultimately got them, their positions in the NFL. So, I wouldn't say it just, leans on that a little bit, but, I think just having experience in the athletic training room and knowing how the athletic training room works is really important. It's a whole different dynamic than a clinic. And, I urge those who are looking or interested in the field is just to get as much exposure as they can in the athletic training room, because, it operates a little differently than the clinic. It isn't, hour long or 30-minute long, patient interaction. Sometimes you're treating 3 people at a time. It's hustle and bustle. You have to work around a schedule. You have to work around practice. So there's a lot of things that go into it that I feel like you wouldn't be able to experience unless you actually got your feet wet, in that setting. So, being able to do that and expose yourself to that, I think is real important, just to even just figure out if it's really something you want to do. The hours are a lot different. The grind's a little bit different. So if you get your experience in there, I think you can start to sort through a little bit of, how you feel like you can fit in, operate, and just even figure out if it's for you.
Yeah, I tell everyone, because there's always students and observers that roll into our clinic, and you don't know until you get your feet wet. You just have to get exposure, because you may really think you like something, but until you get exposure, you just don't know. You spoke about some of the differences. Are there any similarities between the LA Rams, let's say the athletic training room, as well as where you treat, compared to your average orthopedic and sports clinic?
Yeah. There are certain times, I think the one thing that might set it apart is sometimes some of the acuity of the injuries that you see. and being able to manage those throughout the week and throughout the season is a little different than some of those, things that come in that are post-surgical cases or chronic cases. So I think that's the main difference. I think the similarity is, with cases that are long-term, say someone, does have a surgical procedure done and rehabbing them. And, there are, times during the year and during the day where you do have dedicated time, with a player for 45 minutes to an hour. So I think in that regard, the similarity is, there are aspects that are like a clinic, but just depending on the situation, on, who's injured at the time. So I think, there is a similarity in regards to, you will see similar cases. I mean, you're gonna see a post-surgical ACL repair as well. You would see that in the clinic too. So, those cases don't change. I think it's more so, some of the acuity of some of the injuries that you have to manage throughout the week to get to Sunday is probably a little different. But you do see similar cases when it comes to, rehabilitation. And, that's the same stuff I was seeing, when I was working as a PT student. I was at Kaiser and Glendale. So, some of those cases and some of those, even exercises, some of those things are stuff I still use. So it's not a completely foreign field or area to be in. There are similarities, but it's something that's different. I think you definitely need exposure to.
So this is a great question that rolled in, and it's how closely do you work with the team docs? I'm curious because you talk about maybe some of these really acute cases, right? And it happened on the past Sunday. You have maybe a week to try to get the athlete ready for the game on Sunday. So they're working with you, but I'm curious, how involved is the team doc with some of these acute cases, maybe some of those chronic cases too? Tell us a little bit about maybe an experience you've had, or you could give an example of you have 1 week or less to try and get an athlete ready for a game. It's in season, this example, of course, but how much are you talking to the team doc? Who's all involved? Is the athletic trainers involved? Are the strength coaches involved? The coach themselves? Tell us a little bit.
Say a typical, not typical injury, but just a injury occurs. Usually evaluation will be done, on the field. And then when the dust settles and after the game, there'd be another evaluation. And then the next day there'd be another evaluation. The team docs are involved and Reggie's involved as well. And, they determine the severity. They determine, is this something that you can come back in a week? And if not, they kind of provide that a little bit of insight on that. And it's kind of our job to, meet those things. And, a lot of it too throughout the week is to kind of prove again to us that they're safe and they can protect themselves while on the field. So, although we're treating some of the symptoms and their pain and making sure they can get to Sunday, also you want to make sure their function is good as well. So be able to track that throughout the week, being able to take them through, not necessarily testing, but just take them through some dynamic activities that are very position specific, just to make sure that they can do that. Even participating in practice, I think is real important for us to see as well. And then, depending on the case, I mean, there's so many different cases, that the decision can be made, that Friday, the decision can be on Saturday, because decision can be made on Sunday. It just really depends on the situation. But, it's definitely a team effort and a group effort. Everyone's involved. Everyone's in the loop. And the strength staff isn't directly, in the room, but we also have to disseminate that information to them to make sure that they know what's going on, what the player can do. Because they still, need to get some lifts in, and you kind of focus on what they can do as opposed to what they can't do. So if they can do certain things, you definitely want to get them moving throughout the week. So, that's something that, everyone's really a part of. And again, it really is a team effort when it comes to managing the players, especially during the week, making sure everyone's on the same page. And, I think that the players, kind of realize that they realize when everyone's on the same page. So we make sure that we are on the same page. And that's of chief importance, is to make sure that we can convey that to the player. So again, there's a lot of variance in it, but at the end of the day, it is a matter of safety. And, if they feel confident and safe, that's kind of the two things that we go off of.
I love it. I think the safety, pushing the safety, everyone can relate to that. That's important. Much
For
more
sure.
important than ESPN and fantasy football.
Yeah, for
That's what
sure.
people want to know. So it's currently the off season. A lot of questions came in about what's life like as an NFL physical therapist during the off season. What about preseason? What about in season? If you could just
Right.
give a little insight as to those three different scenarios, how they're similar, how they're different, we would love to hear it.
So right now during the off season, we have guys coming in who, had some lingering issues or some postseason surgeries. We'll kind of just take them through their rehab. In a couple of weeks, players will come back and start doing workouts. A couple of weeks from then, around May, then we start doing some activities with coaches, and they start going through some drills and doing some practices. And then in June, when mini camp starts, those are a little bit more kind of organized practices. There's a little bit of a break, and then training camp. Training camp is basically when the season starts. That's when 7 days a week starts. Starting in mid-July, and it goes until hopefully you'd hope February. But you kind of prepare yourself for week by week. So during training camp, you have practices for the most part you have 2 or 3 straight practices, a little day off. But again, the days are guys come in for treatment. They go to meetings. We take care of guys that have longer term conditions. Get ready for practice. So you do prehab, you do taping, you do all sorts of things just to kind of get them ready for practice. And then you go cover practice. That's just more so for coverage of acuity of injuries, making sure there's hydration for the players, and just kind of covering the field just to make sure that you're staying in tune with some players who might be hurt, but you just want to keep tabs on them and make sure that they're doing okay. And making sure no one has heat illness or being able to catch that early on between cramping and checking hydration levels. That's real important, especially during training camp, during those hot months or hot weeks. And then after that, we get into the season. Season's a little bit more organized, obviously, week by week. You have practice days. You have practice days, and then you have a day off for player day off, but that's more so just a treatment day for us. So it's not really a day off. And kind of goes through the week until Sunday. So like I said, once training camp hits, it's kind of a seven day grind throughout the week. But it's something that doesn't even really, I guess, phase me because again, you're working to Sunday, and it's just a lot of fun, and you kind of keep engaged. And I'm blessed to have a really great staff that I work with, so it doesn't really feel like work whenever I come into that athletic training room. It's just fun, and I think that's one thing I'm very grateful for, is that every day is fun, and every day is a challenge in regards to being able to challenge myself to be a better clinician and learn every day, whether it's from working with a player or being able to collaborate with our staff members or strength and conditioning members. I think that's a really cool thing that makes those, like, the 7 days feel like not too much of a grind, even though it is a grind. It makes it real enjoyable. And I think sometimes when people hear that or see that, it's pretty daunting. But I think if it's something that you love, it definitely doesn't feel that way.
That's awesome. So I think we have about 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so, and a lot of other questions rolled in. Let's just hit these as quick as we can. And then I think the question that I want to finish off with is some words of wisdom, because there's definitely people that are tuned in now. There's people that want to tune in later. And it's all about how do they try to steal your job, because that's what people want. But no, honestly, we're going to get into some words of wisdom. How can someone get into your shoes? But let's hit some of these questions. Okay. And then, like I said, you can answer them as honestly as you want. You can also say defer. What's your favorite or most common modality to use?
I think it's your favorite modality. We love the BFR.
Oh, do you?
Big fans of the BFR, man.
Nice.
Yep. That's one
the
thing.
Delphi system? Yeah.
So we're real big fans of that. We see great progressions and great results from it. I definitely think it's something that you could use at any phase of rehab, whether it's post-surgical, whether it's acute, whether it's a chronic issue. whether it's work on range of motion, work on strength, work on activation. I think it's so multifaceted in its uses that it's definitely, a mainstay in a lot of our rehabs and just being able to incorporate some of that stuff. So I would definitely say that's, one big thing that we like, and we like to kind of push the limit a little bit as well, and just to see how we use it, especially when it comes to recovery. Recovery is a big thing in sports and athletics. So being able to maximize that, I think, is definitely important. So any modality that kind of enhances recovery, we're also kind of big into as well. So whatever we can do to help the turnover for players to be able to get to Sunday and be able to get their legs back and get back to kind of neutral before they play, and kind of that wear and tear takes toll on their body. Also, too, it's a long season. We were fortunate enough to have a really long season up until the Super Bowl. So that's uncharted territory for a lot of players. I mean, that's something rare. Probably Brady and Gronk and all those New England guys are used to. They're probably the only ones used to it because they do it almost every year. So I think being able to provide those options and provide those things for our players is definitely important.
I love BFR, and like you said about the recovery, lots of really cool stuff coming out about it with recovery. And it's just that perfect modality for in season. I mean, you're talking about a grueling sport when it comes to what it does to the body, but you have to keep your body in shape for the sport. So to use something that you can try to maintain and help recovery without taking extra hits to your joints, to your ligaments, to connective tissue. I mean, I'm sure it's opened a door in how professional sports teams are training in season. So I love it. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
We answered a couple of these. Okay, this was a good one, and I'm curious because you sent a photo of you actually running out on the field. It was at the Super Bowl, so if I were you, I'd be running out on the field every chance I got. But who, how, and what determines if you treat a player or the AT does?
So I think the great thing, with our staff is everyone's very capable and able to, provide the best care and very efficient care. So I don't think it's more so a matter of one's more qualified than the other. I think it's more so, the rapport with the player, who you feel comfortable with, who they feel comfortable with. I think that's more important. And also too, we'll collaborate with each other, and, if it's a complicated case or something comes up, but, we don't pigeonhole ourselves and, the PT does this, the AT does that. It's very equally spread out between our staff members. Which is great because, everyone is overqualified to be able to do what we do in regards to rehab and, the treatment of players. So we definitely don't like to segment each other into, you only do this or you only do that. We have a great staff that can do it all or do most of it. So, we trust each other to be able to do that stuff.
I love it. It's a team sport.
Mm-hmm.
A question rolled up earlier in here, and it was asking, do you, or maybe have you in the past, had to work with players that like to see their personal guy? And do players actually follow your recommendations? I think any PT or PT student that's listening in right now or that will listen in later, you can always tell who's listening and who's not, who's actually doing what you want them to do. So I'm sure you can tell, but do you have any funny stories about that?
Not so much. I think in general, with that sort of thing, I think it's, again, you kind of get down to the, like buying in. And I think you get down to, again, treating them like a normal person, having normal conversations with them. If you talk down to them and try and use this big language and try and do all this extra stuff that, makes you seem smart or makes you seem, like all this stuff, sometimes you can lose some of the attention of your players. I think if you just converse with your players and build rapport from a, just a personal level and being able to have normal conversations with them, I think is real important because building that rapport helps with buy-in. It isn't so much, how much it's more so how much can you kind of convey the message to them in a relatable sense. It isn't so much that, oh, I have experience, I have experience doing this, I have experience doing that. It's like, no, how can you convey that message to them that they understand, and also explain the why. I think that's real important because, players are inquisitive. They'll ask me and they'll grill me all the time. Why am I doing this? Why am I doing that? I think being able to explain why you're doing something, and always having a reason for everything that you're doing also, again, fortifies some of that rapport with your player because then they know you're not BSing them.
Yeah.
I think that they can sniff out BS pretty well. So, as long as you're pretty confident in what you're doing, and also having the humility to be able to admit, you don't know certain things. I think that's also something that goes a long way. And, being able to defer to, other people when you don't know something. I'll go to Byron if I don't know something about a certain progression on the field. I'll go to Tyler when it comes to not knowing something with sports science or some of the player tracking that we do. So again, it's more so just being real and upfront and straightforward with the players. I think that definitely helps with some of the buy-in and some of the foundational blocks you can stack up to help build the rapport with players. So I think that's definitely important.
And that goes back to, it's a team effort when it comes to the medical staff. Who works with who? It's almost like giving some control to the players as well, because they may get better buy-in working with a certain individual. I mean, placebo effect, or whether you want to call it that or not, it is strong. Here's a good question. I'm curious. Any outside certifications or experiences you have done that you would recommend or that you would say have helped prepare you for your current position?
I think really the biggest thing was really my sports residency. I think anyone who has interest in athletics, who's pursuing a physical therapy degree or a physical therapy certification or what have you, I think that was real important, is just to get specialized education in what you're trying to get into. I had really great mentors, John Meyer, Drew Marcos, Lisa Duet, Russ Romano, Paul Diaz, Amy Diaz. They all really helped my development as someone pursuing sports and athletics. They have more experience than me. They have experience working with different sports, so it wasn't just football. It's just even being able to break down athletic movement. I mean, that's a completely different thing than normal ADLs. Yeah. So even just knowing those things and learning from them, I think was really important. So if anything, I think, looking into residencies or fellowships, just getting more specialized education in that, and, finding great mentors that are doing what you're doing. If you want to do X, you have to, know someone who's doing X and shadow them and observe and do all sorts of things that you can do just to learn as much as you can. Because that stuff is invaluable. And again, I don't want to stress this enough, is just having that experience and being able to learn from other people that are just, better than you. I think that's something that ultimately helps you, and surrounding yourself with people like that will ultimately help you in your career. But again, you just have to be entrenched in it, just be around it, because that's, kind of get your mind working and, seeing certain things that you may not be able to be exposed to in other settings, I think is really helpful. And it really helped me just being able to observe, just being able to see what my mentors were able to do. And, then again, asking questions, what's your thought process of this? Then again, putting it together, I think was really important for my development, and definitely something that I know for sure that I'll never forget in regards to how much it helped me pursuing, athletics and just being able to work in sports.
Be a sports sponge. That's
Yeah.
what I would say. So building off of that, you've talked a little bit about, you just tapped into someone that wants to aspire to be in your shoes. You talked a little bit about that. We talked about in the beginning some of those networking things. If you had, say that you're in an elevator, someone walks in, you're wearing a Rams polo, and they're like, oh, you work for the Rams. They find out you're a physical therapist, your floor is coming up, and they want to know, what's your advice? How do they get there? How do you keep it short and concise? I'm sure this comes up all the time.
Yeah. I think it just kind of goes to finding ways to just be around it and finding ways to be in the environment that you want to be in, and just being familiar with that. And also just, even if it's not observing, I think some people might get caught up in, I want to go and observe and I want this and that. Well, sometimes just to get your foot in the door, you just have to be able to offer, hey, I'll work, or I'll, do whatever you need me to do just to be around it. I think being willing and having the humility just to be able to do that in order to expose yourself to that is something that, I think is real, important. When I was in PT school, I didn't want to lose some of my athletic training knowledge or skill set. So after class, I would take the bus to main campus and I would volunteer with a recreational sports athletic training program, and just see students at USC and just treat them, eval them, and just kind of use those skills while I was in my neuro rotation. So although I was in my neuro rotation, I was still trying to keep up with my athletic training knowledge and skills, and just kind of, again, immersing myself in that environment, just so I didn't, lose some of that, that knowledge, or just being around it. So I think that's just real important, and just being able to, volunteer when you can, and, being able to do some of that, work that, other people aren't willing to do, just to be able to expose yourself to that, I think is real important.
And then someone asked a question earlier, and I feel like you've answered it. It's, how do you balance normal life with PT life as an NFL physical therapist? And I think when you love what you do and you're surrounded by it all the time, I think it's an easy balance.
Absolutely.
It's all perspective. It's someone on the outside may not be able to relate to how does he do that preseason, but to you, it may be the best time of the year.
No, absolutely. Again, just kind of reiterating the fact that I'm just so fortunate and blessed to be able to do what I do, because it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, it doesn't feel like work. I enjoy coming into work every day. I never dread it. And I think that's something is more so a testament to the culture that we have, around here. And I think it's just so important to, if you are a PT, looking, for, something, just making sure you're in a good environment, making sure the culture is right, making sure that, those things are in place before you pick where you want to work, I think is real important. It just makes work that much easier. And like you said, perspective, it's all about perspective. And, I just very grateful for, the opportunity that I have to be able to work here. So I try my hardest, I work my hardest to be able to make sure I stay here. So that's definitely something I don't take for granted.
And just to wrap everything up, it goes back to that networking. And I think being a squeaky wheel, we talked a little bit about it before we got online, but for someone in your position, a physical therapist in the National Football League, someone may think like, wow, I can't believe he's there. I wonder how he did it. But for someone so successful at a young age, I'm sure there's times where someone told you no, where you didn't get what you wanted, where it wasn't always ideal. And then you even mentioned, right, like you had to turn down some of those opportunities and some of those internships. What kept you motivated?
I think what really kept me motivated is just, having an urge to continue to be the pursuit of trying to be a proficient clinician. I love the process of, just trying to get better. I don't think I'm a great clinician. I think I'm always striving to be a great clinician. And I think that kind of helps me keep motivated. It's something that internally motivates me, is just to make sure I'm putting out the best product for our players, because our players rely a lot on us. So I think it's, only right that it's up to us to be able to be the best clinicians we can be for these players, because they do rely a lot on us. So that internal motivation to, almost not let them down. We want to make sure that we provide them the best care. We give them the resources to maximize their performance and maximize their rehab. So I think the internal motivation of just not letting them down and making sure we're the best version of ourselves is really an important driver, for all of us. And I think we're all internally motivated to be able to do that. And, I think our players appreciate that, as well as, we're ultimately, and, as a physical therapist, as an athletic trainer, we're there for, our patients. We're there for them. We always put them above ourselves. So I think as long as you have that kind of that servant mentality, we're here to serve you, we're here for you. You'll always be internally motivated, because when someone is kind of relying on you, you don't want to let them down. So you just want to make sure that you provide the best care that you can. And I think that's why we got into the profession. I don't think anyone would go to become a health professional, a PT, AT, unless they want to serve other people and take care of other people. And I think that's, one common theme, for anyone in healthcare and anyone who's pursuing that field is, you're here to serve other people and you're here to take care of other people. So as long as you have that internal motivation and that internal drive, you'll keep going for a long time.
And like we talked about in the beginning, I asked you if this was your dream job and you said no. So I think that sums it up really well.
Yeah.
So Jon, how can people find you if anyone is interested in chatting with you? I'm sorry if you get tons of messages and emails, but how can people find you?
No, it's all good. You're more than welcome to, I know my my Instagram handle's on here. More than welcome to, send me messages, or, I'll try and get back to them as best I can. That'll probably be the best way, really. Any questions I can answer, I will to the best of my ability. So, I'm here as a, again, servant. I'm here for you guys. I want to make sure that, kind of help, whoever's watching, and, hopefully, I can help one person and they can do whatever. So, I'm here for you guys.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for everyone who joined in, for all the great questions. Maybe you have some friends in here that are asking how you get abs, Jon. Some good questions coming in. Something that came in from before, they asked if he was still always a blue hen. What's a blue hen?
Blue hen, that is Delaware's mascot, Kelly Stafford. Thank you for that question. Yes, I am still a blue hen at heart. I'm blue hen and Trojan. I can be both, can I?
Absolutely. Fight on. All right, Jon. Thank you so much. This was awesome.
All right, cool. Thanks, guys.
See ya.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to this podcast with Dr. Jon Hernandez and I talking about life as an NFL PT. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast. Let us know if there are any other topics you're interested in us covering. If you haven't seen our new website yet, check it out. We have some new features, including the body map that makes it very easy to find exactly what you're looking for.